not going to totally spoil it, but we do have an upcoming interview with Michael Gray. I was chatting to him about his new book and stuff and his work there at the association up there in Ontario, so that was quite interesting. Yeah, that plus working for most of today putting together the Big Rab Show Awards.
Of course, yeah.
Oh, man, you've no idea how long it takes to put together.
Yeah.
But yeah, that was my Saturday. Yeah, that's it. And each one has to be counted and carefully gone through and checked and rechecked.
People get upset.
Oh, totally. It's crazy. This stupid thing that we started as a bit of fun. We thought,
you ever regret
it's
it?
tongue in cheek. We thought it would be a laugh, and we regret it every year. You know, every time we open the nominations and the volume of emails that comes in.
Yeah.
Oh my word! Everyone who has a beard, everyone who ever blew pipes, all gets nominated, and they all have to be counted and verified. It's crazy.
Do you have a category that's consistently like the hottest category, like where you get the most nominations or people get the most upset?
Yes, we do. Definitely the beard. Yeah, best beard.
It's so funny that
it's up there. Huh? Yeah, it's one of the most popular ones and one of the hardest fought. Whenever the actual piping season was happening, we had a lot of categories like best dressed band, coolest drums, and those would have been quite competitive. Bands would have liked to have seen the coolest bass drum and stuff.
Sure.
And they win a Rab Show award. But this time around, because of the pandemic and stuff, we're seeing it's prizes like best social media and best new book or music collection. Things like that.
And
so we've seen a bit of a
focused on their beards quite a bit over the pandemic. So
definitely, yeah. A lot of people have had time to grow them in. You see, yeah.
I hope my buddy Matt Biggs makes it on the board. He's been working on his beard pretty hard.
I know people who purposely groom themselves to try and win this award. So it's crazy. But I know last year Andy Fusco from the Chanter Pod, he managed to pick up the title last year, and. Who knows? Will he be back again to defend it this year? I don't know. I'll have to find out.
I've been for him for a while, so I was happy to hear he got it last year. That's good. Now, the Big Rab Show website, Rab, does mention that you have this hidden talent of being able to talk, and then of course, after talking through sort of the many shows that you're running right now, maybe it's not so much a hidden talent, right?
Not so much now. No, that's for sure.
But this is what you're doing on your weekend as well. Do you ever get tired of it?
I'll be honest, there is some times where it's a bit of a grind.
Yeah.
The guys on the show, kind of, the show team, all the guys that work in the back room, they kind of laugh about it because we all work together and producing content for the show. Like, it's not just me. Like, you have a whole team of guys producing the stuff, but I'm the face of it. So I kind of have to put the message out there that's kind of, here you go, Rab, you're talking about this week. Here you go. And then I go, can someone else not do this?
Yeah.
I want to sit with my feet up and watch Netflix. But, honestly, it's a bit of a labor of love sometimes. And this past week was a fine example of that. So, again, apologies for my croaky voice, but I'm just getting over a cold.
Yeah, I got worried about you. I listened to the episode Wednesday, and I thought, oh, no. So I sent you that message. I was like, you need some time. Take it, man,
It was brutal. Yeah, on Wednesday, I woke up Wednesday morning, I didn't have a voice. I thought, oh my God, that's the worst thing that could happen to someone who works in radio.
For a man in your line of work.
It was horrible. Luckily, the night before, I managed to do all my work for the BBC on Tuesday night, so I was fine. But on Wednesday, that's podcast day.
Yeah.
So I was absolutely panicking. So I was, I don't know, honey, hot lemon, everything I could do to try and bring my voice back. And I had to get one of the guys out of the team, Aaron McElwain, and he actually read the news for me this week.
Yeah.
It's a bit of a team effort, and it's nights like that where you just wish.
He's got a pleasant voice, so at least he's nice.
He has. He has. He's the voice of our weekly drone, and I can't see that feature being any other way without him.
No, it's so great. Now, speaking of your other shows, Rab, now I'd like to ask you, I've got a lot of questions I'd like to ask you. I can't imagine that anybody listening right now doesn't, of course, already know who you are. But I think probably most of us mostly listen to the Big Rab Show, the podcast, right?
Sure, yeah.
You've been doing the Fuse FM show. Now, did that start before the podcast? And then the podcast was born from it?
The show itself started out on Fuse initially, and it's coming up on 10 years now. Actually, we've been doing Fuse FM, which started out as a bit of, we were invited down and said, "Hey, do you want to do a show?" And I thought, okay, well, I'll do a show on bagpipes. And then initially they said no. Who wants to listen? Who wants to listen to a radio show about pipes? So I says, well, that's okay, that's fine. And so I walked away, and then again I got the phone call saying, "Hey, come on down. We'll give this a go and see how it runs." And went down, done my first show, and I've been there ever since. And that was nearly 10 years ago now.
Yeah.
So started out on Fuse. We do 2 hours worth of live radio here in a local community radio station around a town called Ballymoney in Northern Ireland.
That's one of my favorite things to say, Ballymoney.
Ballymoney, yeah, that's a great town name, isn't it?
Yeah, it really is.
That's it. So, and then what we found actually, after like 4 or 5 years, we found that a lot of people were missing it, especially international folks who, because of the time difference, weren't able to tune in.
Oh, sure, it being live, yeah.
Exactly. So we thought we have to do something to try and let people catch up, because you're missing all the news and updates and such. And then we had the brainchild, well, then give them something that you guys can download at any time. Of course, podcast is the answer. So we toyed with the idea, and then we contacted, we put the word out saying, "Hi, we want to launch a podcast. Will there be any sponsors out there that want to help us with this idea? Because podcasting ain't cheap." James, I'm sure you know that. We put the word out, and every company that we had thought might contact us all said no. And the only one that took the chance with us was G1 Reeds and said, "Hey, we think this is a cracking idea. Why not? Here you go. We'll pay your internet bill for a year and we'll see how it runs." And they've been with us from day one.
Well, and good for them, because, I mean, you've got some listenership, and it's exactly their target audience. So good on G1
for sure.
Reeds for foreseeing something that would prove to be real good for them in terms of
And
marketing.
at the time, I really can't stress this enough, that it was such a gamble for them, because at that time, pipe and podcasts weren't as big as they are now, and we kind of blazed our own trail, if you know what I mean, because a weekly piping podcast at that time, there was some initially. I think there was like the Beer Tent, and there was some other ones that were produced by the Piping Centre, but they were sporadic. But this was the first one producing a weekly news show, and with the way we sold it to G1, I says, "Look, we're going to slap your logo on everything we possibly can." And we're going to give you a good shout at the start of the show and everything, and at the end as well. And they were more than happy with that. They said, "Look, Rab, whatever you want, buddy, just go for it." So they took the gamble with us, and thankfully it's been a great working relationship with them since the start. Yeah.
And then you also, was it recently that you started this Kintra show with BBC, or has that been around
the
for a while?
BBC, well, thankfully, due to the success of our show on Fuse, that drew a lot of attention here locally in Northern Ireland. It's quite a popular show here in NI, Northern Ireland. And there'd be a lot of people locally who tune into that show. And as a result of what was going on in Fuse, the BBC started to take notice. And then, obviously, with the launch of the podcast and everything, the BBC folks thought, well, hi, this is growing of its own accord here. And they were thinking of revamping their own Ulster Scots content. Community kind of culture, language, music, and history, and all that sort of stuff. The BBC love that kind of content, and they were trying to reflect it more in their output. So they thought, hey, why not reach out to this guy, Rab? He knows a bit about, Scottish culture and music and all that stuff.
Got his finger on the pulse. He's in the middle
of it. Hi, honestly, when I got the phone call, no word of a lie, I thought it was a joke. I thought someone was ticking the hand out, and thought, no. Hey, this is somebody from BBC. You want to come and do a show for us? I thought, yeah, dead on. Yeah. So I hung up the phone. I thought,
you hung up on him.
I did. I thought, oh, shut up. You're wise up. Thought it was a joke. And then I started phoning my mates, and I says, hey, did you'd organise like a prank call for me, for some of the people? And they were like, no, that wasn't me. So I then sheepishly had to do the redial and ring them back and go, hi, it's me again. Are you sure that wasn't a joke? Because I kind of hung up on you. And said, no, honestly, it's not a joke. So talk about embarrassing.
Yeah.
But yeah, I was called down to Broadcasting House in the BBC, spoke to all the execs and the producers and stuff, and I was very much a rabbit in the headlights. I had no clue what I was doing. But they said to me, he says, look, you don't have to be a professional broadcaster guy like all these folks sitting around you who are paid X amount of pounds to do it. You know what I mean? We want you because you know what you're doing in the piping world, and that's exactly my focus still. So yeah, show 1 in Kintra was like a couple of years ago now, and it's been rolling ever since. It's been really interesting.
Yeah. Oh, that's awesome, and I'm only very, very happy for you, Rab, because your voice. I'm sure you get this a lot, right? But your voice has been a constant in my life for a long time now. So I'm glad
thanks, man.
I'm glad it's being recognized, and that it's expanding in these different ways and stuff. It's exciting to imagine what the show and what you're going to do in the future as well.
No, thank you. Yeah, I appreciate that. And it's weird whenever people say that to me. I listen to you every week.
Right, yeah.
Like, what? Really?
Yeah.
I'm sitting here in my garage and there's 4 walls and a computer screen. No one listens to me. Wise up.
This guy from Northern Ireland. Speaking of which, I hope you'll forgive my very middle of the continent American ignorance here. But what little I understand of the division between Northern Ireland and Ireland, the history between the Ulster region, etc., is basically what I can get from Dairy Girls, which is great. I sure enjoyed that show. But I don't. Is Ulster all of Northern Ireland, or just a good chunk of it, or does the Ulster region expand beyond the Northern Ireland border?
See, that's it. It's a difficult one, and it's a political one as well.
Yeah.
The Ulster region includes counties such as Donegal, Connaught and Drogheda and places like that, but they are not within the 6 counties of Northern Ireland, but mix up Northern Ireland. So yeah, Northern Ireland is one thing, Ulster is another, but a lot of people in conversation refer to Northern Ireland as Ulster. So
there's it's a weird one geographically, but it's not exactly the same thing.
Yeah, that's it exactly. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
I see. Well, it's very interesting. I hope you don't
mind. Geography lesson. Yeah.
This is something that it's maybe very boring, but I couldn't help just looking around a bit, because your name being Rab. Honestly, I'd been listening to your show for a while before I realized that was short for Robert.
Oh, it is? Yeah.
Because
but
of course, over here, I only ever hear Rob or Bob, right? I'd never really thought Rab,
I do find a lot of folks from the States do call me Rob, or they can't pronounce the Rab bit.
Right, yeah.
I don't know what that is. But yeah, it's because obviously my family have Scottish connections, and Robert always got shortened down to Rab or Rabbi. So yeah, I got Rab, and I only ever get Robert, my full title, if I'm in it up to my neck. If I'm in trouble, that's when I get my full title. So yeah, if my wife is shouting my full name, I'm for it.
Well, you are a speaking, being a guy who's living in Northern Ireland and all, you're come from the local stock. I was spurred on by the figuring out what Rab meant. I also I hope this isn't weird, Rab. I was looking at I really like words. The part of the reason I like Tolkien so much is because I get real excited about just sort of philology, etymology, things like that, right? Mm-hmm. And Lennox, that it looks like comes from a Gaelic word that has something to do with elm trees, and then it's got the that sort of geographical suffix that at the end.
It does indeed. If anything, the Lennox family actually come from Scotland. Yeah. We're from the Dumbartonshire area, where we were actual Scottish royalty back in the clan days, before the English king and did all his monkey business up there. And a lot of the Lennoxes actually came across, because it's a very short stretch of water. They would have come across from Scotland to Ireland quite frequently, and a lot of Lennoxes settled in Northern Ireland to get out of Scotland, basically.
Is that the time period from which we get that phrase, Ulster Scots? That
exactly.
Right there.
Mm-hmm. That's it indeed. So the connection between the two countries is, it's such a short space of water. You're talking 2 or 3 hours by boat. Yeah, and you're there. So that's what we talk about on Kindra. We talk about that Ulster Scots connection between Ulster, Northern Ireland, and Scotland. And my connection obviously is with my family history and heritage, but also with my connection to the music.
Yeah.
So,
well,
so that's where I come in.
Tell me all about that. You started playing when you were young. What, 8, 9 years old?
I would have started even younger, but my father told me not to.
Really? And so how does it all start? Take me back as far as you want to. Did your parents play? You had uncles who played, aunts and grandmas? How'd you get to where you are and what you're doing?
But my story's not unique, though, for folks here in Northern Ireland. But yeah, It's one of those things. Whenever a baby is born, you check its fingers as soon as it comes out. You know that the baby's only a few minutes old. You're checking the hands because the first thing you're looking for, if it's got short, stumpy fingers, that's going to be a drummer. If it's got long, elongated fingers, that's a piper. You know, doesn't matter.
Really?
So
That's
even
great.
even before you've had your first bottle or nappy change, you're already a drummer and a piper.
Decided.
So, yeah, exactly. So I've come from generations and generations of pipers and drummers, drum majors, and it's all I heard through childhood. You know, stories about bands going to compete and winning the worlds and coming back home with a trophy. You know, I didn't have many bedtime stories that weren't about, oh, do you remember the time we went on the boat over to Scotland and we went and we played at such a competition and it rained all day and then we came home. So, you know, that was the kind of world I grew up in, surrounded with the music because we were constantly running to band practice.
Yeah.
And it was just inevitable. And then there was a bit of a family battle, actually, for my own circumstance. I had two uncles who were drummers and my father was a piper. And my dad kept wanting to make me lift the chanter. Mm-hmm. And no, all my uncles kept buying me drum pads and drumsticks, and my dad kept hiding them then in the house. So, Dad, I can't find my sticks. Oh, that's okay. I found this chanter for you.
Here, please, chanter.
And then, I think there was one fateful age that I found my aunt's tenor drum, and of course I didn't have a pair of sticks to hit it with, and I had 78th on LP. That shows you how long ago it was. So I put the record on and I sat in the living room with my aunt's tenor drum in the middle of the room and I was just hitting it with my hands. And then I seen, oh, there's that chanter Dad got for me. Oh, great. And hey, look, it separates into two pieces. They're two drumsticks. So then I started wailing away on this thing with two halves of a chanter. So you can imagine my aunt was very well impressed with that.
But if she was rooting for you to be a drummer, I mean, what better clear indication that a person has a preference than that they turn a practice chanter into drumsticks.
Exactly. And this was, it was one of those moments where people just, well, maybe we're going to stop trying to push him into the pipes. You know, my dad, God love him, forever was trying to teach me how to play scales and stuff, and I just wasn't having it. But yeah, it took to the drum like duck to water. Yeah. And like I said, I could have started much younger, maybe 7 or 8, but I was always told, no, 9 is the magic age. Never put a set of sticks in your hand or whatever until you hit 9, because apparently you develop so many bad habits. But hey, that was back then. Things have changed now. You know, kids are replaying even younger now.
And well, too. It's scary how well some of these very young people play.
That's crazy.
Just hang my pipes up on the wall and forget about competing.
Yeah.
No, but you were young enough that do you feel like your interest in drumming was entirely an interest in drumming? There was no sort of like rebellion element where like your dad wanted you to play pipes, so you're like, oh, show him, I'm going to play drums instead.
Yeah, I think there was a bit of that in there, to be honest. I really wanted to make a go at the drumming because he always said, we'll give you a year or two on the snare or the tenor or whatever and see how you go. And if it's not working out, then you'll maybe try this pipe and lark, I thought, yeah, okay. So whenever I was 9, people don't believe me, but at 9 I started out in tenor in grade 2.
Way to go.
I know, and looking back on it now, I couldn't believe it.
You must have had real good drummer fingers, right? Were they real stubby ones, right?
I must have done, yeah, real stumpy fingers. But yeah, started out in grade 2 at age 9, spent 3 years on tenor, and then eventually graduated onto snare. Whenever I was in double figures, like 11 or 12. Yeah. And again, competed for a few seasons in grade 2 with various different bands local to me here. And the rest is history, man. I've played in plenty of bands, all grades.
I know you came over to Texas not long ago.
Yeah, and over to Texas. And that's what I was going to say. That was my first experience, actually, of piping and drumming in the States. Man, what an experience.
I mean, it's different, that's for sure. I mean, not that I know personally, right? I'm not where you are, but just hearing you talk about like actually having access to bagpipe music, knowing other people who play pipes and drums, like hearing it live as well as that's a foreign world to me, right? Like where I'm at, you kind of have to really want it and hunt for it. You know what I mean?
That's what I found, talking to people at Stone Mountain, like this was a huge occasion for them, to be meeting with fellow pipers and drummers, never mind to be able to compete against them and stuff, and just to be able to stand and talk to the guys at Wake and then stand to someone else and chat to the Atlanta Pipe Band, chatting to different bands doesn't happen very often in the States. And but over here, it's something we really take for granted. It's in the water. Like just today, actually, I was at a filling station, gas station, filling up my car, and someone comes over and says, "Hey, Rab, I hear the bands are getting back together again and, working for the winter and all, some random guy I've never met before, and he just comes over and starts talking about pipe bands to me because he recognized me as being that piping guy.
Yeah, and he's in the world too, right? I feel like
that's
part of why your show is so well loved is just that, I mean, I'm sure there are plenty of reasons why it's well loved, right? But for me, where I'm at geographically, I feel like for myself personally, and probably for a lot of other people who are similarly far flung from Northern Ireland, right? It still is important to us or matters to us or does something for us because it takes what can be a somewhat lonely interest or hobby and makes one feel like, we are many, we're a community, there's lots of stuff going on all the time, not just, 2 competitions per summer if you're lucky,
No, exactly. And that's one thing I really have taken for granted. I thought, honestly, I would be recording this thing in my garage, talking away to myself, and no one would listen. And then what I found is that there's a huge, huge world out there full of pipers and drummers. And we have kind of acted like a bit of not a dating service, that's the wrong word, but we have kept people together and connected.
It makes sense. I can see that, yeah.
Do you know what I mean?
Absolutely.
Yeah. Like one of our biggest things that we've ran over the previous years, back in 2017, 2018, was the matchmaking service, where we try to get people married up with bands, so they want to start playing again. They don't know where to go to. So we were getting messages from bands looking players and players looking bands. So we would just spend a lot of time matching folks up,
Yeah. No, it makes sense.
Keeping folk connected. And that's been very much a focus of ours over the years. We found that we're not just talking to the Northern Ireland folks, the UK folks, but we're now branching out and looking more worldwide,
Right.
Yeah.
Very cool.
It's been interesting.
you Rab, it's, I mean, you can't remember a time that you weren't aware of the piping and drumming scene, right? Like this has just been part of your life all along.
Yeah.
Do you still have like a day job,
I do, yeah. I have a mortgage and a car payment and all of that stuff.
Take care of all that stuff. So
exactly, just like everyone else.
What else do you do? What else is taking up your time and your energy?
Well, I do have a 9-to-5 day job. I do work for the local Northern Ireland government, so I'm civil servant.
Are you allowed to tell us what exactly you do, or will you have to kill me if you do?
Well, there's nothing like that, and that's a very glamorous administrative job. That's spreadsheets and Word documents all day. It's great. So yeah, other than that, my day job pays the bills and gets in my 9-to-5. All the rest of my time, it's all spent on BBC and Big Rab show. Yeah.
Do you get any time to play music yourself?
Very rarely. I have been taking piping lessons with Andrew Shilliday, member of the Rab show team, but it started out as a bit of a joke and is now all of a sudden getting very serious because apparently I'm making suitable ways forward, and he's now talking about me possibly competing next year.
I would love to hear that, Rab.
I'm like, what? Cool. He's serious?
Yeah.
So, yeah, he is serious. And Andrew is the kind of guy, he has the patience of an absolute saint, because I'm a drummer learning how to pipe, so God love him. But he said, I'm making enough headway on the pipes and stuff that I actually may well step into the circle with the band playing pipes, which honestly would put a huge smile on my dad's face, I'm sure.
Yeah,
kind of like I told you so.
Asking, is he still around? Is he aware of this? Or?
Oh, he is. He's well aware of it. And hears me practicing most evenings and sees fit to ring me after every practice session and say, "What the hell was that you were trying to play? That was terrible."
He's keeping you humble, huh? If Andy
definitely
tells you you're doing a good job, your dad will make sure you know you're not doing that great.
Oh, 100%. He said, your blowing was off, your D was flat. Come on, and you put a bit more tip on that G. And okay, Dad, right? Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Is he going to pick up a pair of sticks? Is he going to start learning some snare?
Do you know? I should do that, actually.
You should.
Oh man, that's a brilliant idea. Yeah, I should do that.
Yeah.
All right,
Hey, Dad,
smart
you
arse.
know
Here's a
what?
pair of sticks.
Yeah, exactly. Tell him you'll go compete. This next season if he'll start tapping away.
Oh, that'd be amazing. Yeah. God, well, see, my dad is the type of fella. He was offered pipe major roles in different bands, but he's always turned them down
Oh yeah.
because he never wanted that role of responsibility. The highest up the ranks he ever got to was pipe sergeant, and that put him in charge of the tuning, but that was it. That's about as high as he wanted to go.
Yeah.
So quite a humble fella, and I suppose I've kind of inherited a lot of that from him. I don't like speaking of myself too highly, if I'm honest. I do hear a lot of folks saying, "Oh, your show's brilliant," and we all love it. It's great, but I'm constantly listening to podcasts and other shows, and I'm thinking, my show's a load of dung compared to that, and I could do so much better. So even with listening to yourself and droning on, like, your pod's brilliant.
Yeah,
These
very
long form
kind.
conversations. Oh, seriously. But the fact of the matter is that you're able to chat to your guest over a longer period of time. It's an actual conversation. Whereas with me, it's more of an interview. I'm asking questions,
they're
answers.
Different animals. Yeah. Absolutely.
Yeah, for sure. I love that. It has its own energy. And then even the guys at Chanter ran, as much as I hate to admit it, their show is brilliant too.
It's a very different energy, isn't it?
Completely different energy.
I'm a diehard fan, though. I'll tell you what. When I started listening to them, they already had like over 100 episodes, and I listened through all of their back material in the course of like less than 2 months.
Wow.
I had a long commute at the time for the work I was doing, and it was just back to back, 2x speed, Josh and Andy nonstop the whole time.
Oh, wow.
I think I maybe broke my brain a little bit, honestly. I'm maybe still recovering.
Yeah, you might have needed a hot shower after that. Yeah. But no, those guys, they're completely irreverent, and that's, it's what we need as well. Yeah. It's refreshing sometimes,
It is, yeah.
So yeah, I'm a huge fan of those guys, So that's what I'm saying. I'm listening to other shows, and I'm thinking, God, they're so good. And we'll have to do what we can to try and produce something as equally entertaining. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah. Well, listen, Rab, you are the king, and and you don't have to believe me, and you don't have to say it. I'll say it. Everybody loves your show, and the thing is, one of the things that really just impresses me to no end is that you have been so open to these new little shows popping up anywhere that when the Pipecast popped up, you were one of the very first supporters. You hopped right in there with the Chanter guys. You've been very kind to me. You just like, there's no sense of like, it's not like you have this attitude that there's a limited amount of potential success in the world. You're all about cheering others on, and it's part of your personality that I think is part of what makes people like listening to you as well.
Oh, for sure. Do you know, another 50 podcasts about piping could start tomorrow, and I would be a fan of every one of them. It's a huge scene, and honestly, my opinion is the more people talking about it, the better, because that's putting the voice out there. And the more people hear about what we do, the more people will want to take it up. Yeah. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
The more players, the more potential for great music, all the more enjoyment. Why the heck would I start getting on my soapbox and telling people, don't you dare launch a podcast, oh, that's competition, and we want to be number one. No, that's absolute nonsense.
Yeah.
There's no possible way we could be number one at all in a huge big world full of podcasts. But I'm all for it, man. And as I say, I've been enjoying your pod. These long form conversations are an absolute gift. I love these. These are brilliant.
Well, I was telling Jeremy Kingsbury of the WUSPBA Bagpipes and History podcast that like, in all honesty, the long form conversation is just so much easier for me because I can just ask a question and then you get to make the episode, whereas like what he does with his show, there's a lot of prep, there's a lot of research and recording and preparation. What you do with your show, there's so much like news to pull in, and then those there's so many segments to every episode of your show. Like just honestly, even the Chanter guys put in more work than I do.
I don't know, the preparation for each one of our episode, it is a labor of love. We do plan like 6-7 episodes in advance, and we do mostly record our interviews over weekends as well, because I work a 9 to 5 and I work for BBC through the week, so there is so many hours in the day. But obviously, whenever there's big things happening, like World's Week or Piping Live or anything huge like that, obviously we'll work our plan for that. And we haven't mentioned anything to do with the live streaming and stuff that we would do
Of course,
at events, which is a huge undertaking that has taken years off my life in stress.
I'll tell you what, though, that's one of the greatest gifts that you and your team have given to the world, though. Speaking of being like, a people in diaspora, as it were, pipers and drummers all over the world, being able to listen in to those kinds of events that are happening right there in your neighborhood, it really is. It's something I remember when we didn't have that, just not that many years ago, and it's a big deal.
It's invaluable, really. But, for people who are infirm or in bad health and just can't travel to the event that live locally, and for you guys that live internationally, this is the only access you'll get to see the British Championships, the Scottish, the Europeans. Otherwise there'd be no content online anywhere. And we've said it from day one, we're doing it because no one else is, and that's it. In my honest opinion, I've already went on record in saying this, I think the associations who run these competitions should be doing this. Whenever you look at Australia and New Zealand and their national championships and their live streaming content that they bring from those, oh my God, it's incredible. It's an entire day's worth of content, and you could just sit and
multiple cameras,
it's incredible.
Microphones, everything.
The high definition, sound and images, and you have commentary through the day, and it's just brilliant. And it's, we honestly couldn't hold a candle to it with us on our cell phones standing in the lashing rain trying to film Field Marshal.
It's still something, though.
It's something. Exactly. Yeah, so we do what we can. We've got a Patreon there, and we're doing what we can to kind of invest in new equipment and stuff. So we've got new cameras, new mics and stuff, and all of that. And then COVID hit, and hey, there we go. We're back to square one.
Well,
but
please don't hesitate to plug anything, Rab, and I'll be happy to put links into the show notes as well. Like I say, I think anybody listening already knows who you are and what you do, but absolutely feel free to plug, your Patreon page.
No, thanks. Well, sorry about that. I kind of dropped that in there without thinking.
I don't think you meant to, I meant to tell you at the start and forgot to. Just go on.
Oh, I see. Okay, cool. Well, as I say, we try to invest in our live streaming infrastructure, and we're trying to plan for events that are coming up. We've done a little bit of live streaming this year, not much because there's been limited events. We've got another one that's coming up in November, actually, that we've been invited to. So that's actually starting to happen now. People are inviting us to come to things to deliberately live stream them, whereas before we were kind of trying to sneak in.
Weren't you?
We did. We got kicked out of some places. Specifically, I think it was the Ulster Solos.
Yeah.
They put a big notice in their program. And anyone wearing a Big Rab Show shirt or a hoodie was asked, what are they doing? Why are you here? Are you filming today? And, they were like almost harassed and stuff. It's really aggressive. And so we were like, okay, no filming. That's fine. And obviously the backlash that happened after that was insane. And then, I think we called it #StreamGate, where our association stopped us from streaming anything. And it was horrible. I've never been so stressed out in my life. I've had people call to my door. Phone was ringing all the time. Because obviously we were providing this as best we could, but we couldn't provide it because the folks who run the events made the rules. So, very long story short, but over a couple of weeks after that, there was a series of negotiations and phone calls. And eventually an understanding was reached, and we were able to live stream certain events from the rest of the year. And as far as next season goes, 2022, we don't know how it's going to run. And that's quite a scary prospect whenever you consider the amount of competitions that's ahead of us, all the majors, the minors, concerts and such. It's a bit daunting.
Yeah. And as you talk about all of this, all the work that goes into it, Rab, where's you said your wife is patient, and she must be, because she's stuck with you this far with all the time that you're putting into all of this. But how does she come into this scene? Did she grow up in the same area? Does she also have piping and drumming family? Was this new to her when she met you?
Completely new to her when she met me.
Really?
She actually met me through my high school, and she knew me as a drummer because in high school I played drum kit. on the side as well as playing in pipe bands.
What kind of like concert band, like rock and roll, like what kind of stuff?
Yeah. Well, everything. I played concert band in school, obviously for like a school orchestra type of deal, but also played in a few rock bands and stuff locally, and played gigs in pubs and clubs and stuff. And that's kind of how I met her. And she always thought I was this kit drummer, this bit of a weird musician guy that always turned up everywhere where there was a gig. Yeah. So yeah, the pipe band thing was a little weird for her to begin with. She didn't understand it, and she thought, well, what is this? And then I kind of introduced her to the whole culture of heading out to band practice 2 or 3 nights a week, and then competition on a Saturday, and she stuck with me. If anything, whenever I first got handed a leading drummer role, the band I was with needed tenor drummers. So I was like, hey, come on, you're now a tenor drummer. You're coming to band practice anyway. Here's a set of tenor sticks. Yeah. So, yeah, she played a season with the band but I was with at the time at the Quinn, and then I think that was it. She lasted about 1 season and didn't want to continue. So, but yeah, she's well aware of what piping and drumming is and just how all-consuming it can be.
So did the two of you go to the same school, or was it just you're about the same age in the same area?
Yeah, we went to the same school. Yeah.
That's fun.
Yeah. So, I don't know, kind of childhood sweethearts, I suppose. We met whenever we were teenagers, you know. I suppose in a way that means that she can be very long-suffering. You know, she knows me well enough by now.
Really well.
Yeah,
that's how my wife and I are too. We met real young, and so like at this point, there's nothing she doesn't know about me. So
yeah, exactly. I'm just in the same boat. Yeah.
Now, what? I don't mean to drill in too much about it, but I am curious. Like, what was the scene when you were a teenager drumming around? Like, were you kind of doing some punk stuff, or were you into the ska stuff, or like were you doing a lot of covers, writing originals? What kind of stuff were you doing?
Well, the kit drumming, I played in so many different bands. I played for musical productions and stuff, for the likes of Blood Brothers and like different Broadway musicals like Grease, things like that. I played in a lot of those because I got a college kind of qualification in drumming theory and stuff.
So you were kind of like a mercenary drummer out for hire.
Pretty much, yeah. Because at that time, drummers who read music didn't really exist in Northern Ireland. There wasn't that many of them. So because
and I know music theory,
that's it. So
unicorn.
Yeah, exactly. So I could turn up to a band practice. Someone would hand me sheet music, leave me for 10 minutes, and I would come back and would have it off.
To do.
I'd know what to do. Yeah. So I played for various jazz and swing bands and big bands, things like that. And then I actually went and studied music for a couple of years. And I started out totally rebellious, and I thought, hey, I had enough of this old jazz music and swing and stuff. I'm going to go for an indie rock band, because at that time Britpop was very big. Oasis and Blur and Radiohead, bands like that. So we kind of emulated those and kind of wrote our own stuff, and we were kind of blazing our own trail. Hey, we're going to make it. Of course, we never did. And then I went from that, which I thought was the music we were playing was a bit melancholy, a bit moody. So I thought, I wanted something a bit more aggressive, because I'm a teenager after all, full of hormones and alcohol. Let's play some metal.
Hey,
so
if you're not going from from moody to aggressive, then you're not a teenager, right? That tracks perfectly.
Exactly. And if anything, at the time, I was in grade 2 playing with the Quinn Memorial, and I was having a lot of trouble playing Swiss roughs. Like my lead tipper, every time it came to a certain score, I think it was the strathspey actually for the MSR, I could not play this. Like, he had like a run of like 2 or 3 Swiss roughs all in a row. Drummers out there will kind of know what I'm talking about.
Yeah, I don't. What is this? Like, I know of flams, diddles, paradiddles. What's a Swiss rough?
Swiss rough is it's a right hand, 2 on the left, 1 on the right, but it's phrased in a certain way that it's all open. So kind of a thing. Yeah, exactly. I maybe didn't describe that too well, but a Swiss rough is a rough not crushed but played open and phrased with an accent at either the start or the end, and I couldn't play them, and for the life of me couldn't. And then I found the band Korn. They've got a piper, so I was listening to a lot of Korn, and it turned out that their drummer actually played a lot of Swiss roughs in one of their songs. So I thought, if I learn that song on kit, that'll really help me for my pipe band playing. Of course, then someone in music college heard me playing a Korn song, and they're like, hey, come on and join our metal band.
Very nice.
So before we know it, I was playing, kit for a metal band because I wanted to improve my pipe band drumming. So, yeah.
Did you have to grow your hair out for that?
No, I didn't. Thankfully, no. That was the time where really big baggy trousers and a black T-shirt.
Those Jinko jeans.
There you go. That's them.
Man.
Yeah, that was it. So I played a good few metal bands and stuff, and then I stopped all the kind of drum kit and drumming and just really focused on the piping. Then after that.
Is there any grainy footage or old recordings out there in the deeper recesses of the internet?
Oh, there is.
Dig up of,
yeah. There's nothing online, I don't think. Thankfully, the internet wasn't.
We gotta fix that.
No, I've actually converted over some old stuff onto MP3 just to listen back to it, and some of it's hilarious. Some of the songs are quite decent too.
Right,
but
now listen, Rab, I'm not telling you how to do your thing, right? But if you're not tempting enough people to join Patreon for special content yet, let me just put in a plug. Maybe some recordings. Here's Rab playing Korn 20 years ago.
There you go.
I think there might be some people who have not yet, patronized who would begin to provide their patronage at that point.
Yeah, that would be fun, actually. Yeah, I don't know. I'd either have a real positive reaction or the complete opposite. You're like, what are you doing, you dipstick?
Reaction's a reaction.
Yeah, well, that's it. Yeah, but no. A lot of folks who listen to me on the radio and on podcasts and stuff don't realize that I'm actually a drummer, a musician of sorts.
Yeah.
A lot of folks just think I'm like a commentator who has never really been involved in the scene, but thankfully I'm kind of part of it. Yeah. Do you know what I mean? I'm well used to standing in that circle. I know exactly what it's like to have a judge standing behind you with a clipboard. You know.
Well, and that's part of
loads of experience.
Your commentary good is that you're. It's like when a retired Olympic figure skater is doing commentary for figure skating, right? Rather than just a person who is being paid as a commentator. You know what I mean?
Yeah. They know what they're talking about.
Yeah.
Exactly. So now, as I was standing in Stone Mountain in 2019 with water up over my ankles, I could say to myself, I'm still a part of this. Yeah. I'm here.
Paying your dues. Proving your
that was fun. Yeah.
So now, if you had, just money's no object, you've got the time, family's taken care of, house is taken care of, everything's fine.
Mm-hmm.
Where would you, maybe you'd invest your time in a lot of different things, but what do you feel like you'd really enjoy going to first? I mean, would you resurrect the kit? Would you start something new? What do you think you'd be drawn to?
Ooh, very good question. Honestly, my focus with the Big Rab show this last while has been trying to broaden our horizons, even for folk here in the UK who can be very insular and looking inward. And I'm trying to broaden everyone's horizon by telling them, hey, look at what's going on in New Zealand right now. They have an incredible piping scene. And Australia, even Canada and the US, I'm trying to open folks' eyes in the UK to kind of say, right, our piping scene here is great. And it's, it is what it is. It's brilliant. But, hey, look around the world. They're equally as brilliant. Do you know what I mean? Mm-hmm. So if money was no object and all that stuff, honestly, international travel and I've been actually to attend more events internationally to draw folks' attention to it. I was recently invited there to the Chicago Games. I've been told they're all sorts of awesome. I'd love to go to them. Also, I've been invited down under, of course, for the Australian Nationals and the New Zealand Nationals. Would love to get to either of those. And yeah, it's just international travel, man, if I'm honest. Just to see piping and drumming in a different place from what I'm used to. Yeah.
Am I correct in kind of catching this sort of vibe that recently you've also... I mean, maybe I'm wrong. Maybe it's just my perception, but I feel like you've been talking more about the trad scene as well. Is that part of the same kind of push to broaden horizons, or am I just not reading that correctly? Maybe you've
you're 100% right. Yeah, because I think especially over the pandemic, those guys are incredibly hard hit. Now, the bagpiping scene, specifically the competitive band scene, would draw a lot from the Celtic and folk music scene. A lot of those guys would write tunes, play them in bars, and then someone in a pipe band would overhear it and think, oh, that could be a good opener, or that could be a good jig to finish with, and the two worlds kind of intermingle.
Yeah.
But forever I always thought that the Celtic and folk guys don't get enough credit for that. They compose music all the time, which is absolutely blistering, and then the pipe band folks come along and say, hey, thank you, Fred Morrison, we're going to have that hard drive, thanks very much. And next thing you know, it's in a Field Marshal medley, and everyone thinks, well, who wrote that? Oh, who cares? It sounds amazing,
Right.
you know. So if I'm on the radio telling everyone it's Fred Morrison who wrote that, and then more people look into Fred, hopefully buy his music and support the guy. So yeah, over the course of the pandemic, these guys obviously have had their livelihoods shattered.
Yeah,
You know,
gigs.
but no gigs, absolutely nothing happening for them. And the only thing that they could do is release music either recorded at home or like make a book or something. So
Yeah.
it's kind of been my focus is to try and help these guys. You know, try and give them a bit of a voice, you know, as they were sitting at home locked behind closed doors.
Yeah.
You know, hi, there's these amazing musicians here who are playing their heart and soul out. You know, why not go drop them a few quid and you'll get some incredible music. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. You've turned me on to some good music for sure just in the last few months. So I
Yeah.
appreciate it.
No, you're very welcome. And I found that actually with playing more kind of interesting music that folk wouldn't normally hear, you know, it's been a real joy actually
Yeah.
discovering these things, you know. So
I like hearing people have people who know more than I do. You know, speaking of like Jeremy Kingsbury, for example, hearing people talk about folks talk about kind of like you know, to a large degree, of course, there are new things being generated in sort of the piping and traditional music scene.
Yeah.
But there are a lot of things that are kind of being dug up and rediscovered that at least I personally never knew about, you know, and so to me it's like brand new, and then you find out, oh, this is actually, you know, a 400-year-old tune, right? You know, this is the way pipes used to be played before the regimental style came in, you know, and stuff like that. It's kind of this rediscovery process as well. It's a lot of fun.
Oh, definitely. And if anything, quite an interesting character in the piping scene, Dan Nevins. We had Dan on the show a while ago talking about his new book. Shameless plug for him. Pibroch is for everyone.
Pibroch is for everyone, yeah.
I'm
ordering my copy later today.
Yeah, honestly, man, it's really opened my eyes to a world.
Center, right?
Yeah, you can, yeah. But it's opened my eyes to a world of music that I never really fully appreciated. You know, the Glenfiddich comes around every year. You watch it for what it is. Piper stand up there, play a 20-minute Pibroch, and you're like, come on.
You wake up at the end and...
Yeah. That's it. Like, wow, what was that? But now, having read that book and you understand the history of it, the structure of these tunes, and wow, yeah, I can't wait for Glenfiddich this year just to see if some of the tunes Dan talks about. So yeah, all these old ancient things getting brought to the fore, I'm all for it.
Yeah.
Brilliant.
Yeah, it's a lot of fun. Now, when you're listening to music recreationally, Rab, I'm sure that some of your listening is in preparation for your show because you're going to be interviewing people who made music, so you want to listen to their record, that kind of thing. But if you're not listening to pipe music, right, be it competitive bands or trad stuff, what else do you listen to? I mean, are you still listening to Korn a lot? Like, what are you into right now? What's on your what do you shuffle?
Oh wow, non-piping related.
Maybe there's nothing. I mean, tell me if that's the case.
I listen to a lot of trad, and a serious amount of it, nearly probably an unhealthy amount of it, because honestly, it's a huge deal here in Ireland specifically.
Yeah.
Serious amount of Irish musicians. But, you know, whenever I go out there, people say that my musical tastes is kind of like someone with a bad case of Tourette's.
Yeah, sure.
You know, where you could suddenly be listening to Frank Sinatra in one breath, and then suddenly you break into, I don't know, Disturbed or, you know, Slayer or Cradle of Filth, and then, you know, I have a very...
Pibroch all of a sudden.
Yeah, like it's a Pibroch, and then you're listening to a bit of Bach, and then Strauss comes in there, and then all of a sudden you're back to the Beach Boys and the Beatles, and anything, man, that's good in my opinion. This last while I've been listening to a band called The Midnight. The Midnight, I absolutely love them, and because it's part of a new wave of old wave music, if you know what I mean. It's called retro wave.
I'm pulling them up right now. Is the retro kind of like an 80s synth kind of thing?
Exactly, that's it, and it's been really nostalgic for me because their music sounds a lot like the music I grew up with on the radio. You know, where it's very 80s. The guy's voice is incredible, and I really enjoy them.
Yeah.
But it's a world away from piping. Yeah.
Now, but speaking of sort of like piping in the trad scene and stuff, where you grew up in sort of a piping and drumming family, Was that
Yes.
exclusively competitive piping and drumming, or did you like was Seamus Ennis your great uncle? Like, did you know like uilleann pipers, fiddlers, bowron players? Was it kind of all over?
Well, just as much as I'm talking about listening to music outside of the piping scene, as a family, we always had the records, the LPs, all the recordings and whatnot. And it was on the radio too, here locally as well. Piping and drumming, competitive bands, solo piping, all that sort of stuff. Mm-hmm. If you were going to branch out from that, then you were looking at bands like the Tannahill Weavers, the Dubliners, other sort of traditional bands here locally. Yeah. And then if you really wanted to push the boat out, then you delved into the world of pop music and rock music. Mm-hmm. Like bands like U2 obviously were huge here, things like that. But yeah, normally on the stereo at home would have been bands, and that's it. It's all we ever talked about. It's all we ever wanted to talk about.
It's a fun thing for me to imagine, like young Rab, like sort of like discovering popular music, where like most people have exactly the opposite experience,
I know, it's weird.
They're
I always remember the story of how I discovered Phil Collins.
Yeah.
You know that intro in the air tonight, that do-doon, do-doon, do-do, that one there? Yeah. I heard that intro and I said, 70th, play that. I said 70th, play that in their tenor line.
Yeah, you
and,
said, oh, they've got a great, whatever band this is has a great tenor line.
Yeah, I said, no, the 70th, play that in a certain set. And sure enough, me and my dad then both sat down and through all the LPs and we found it. And they do.
Oh, now you know where Phil Collins copied that drum riff from.
There you go. Do-dun, do-dun, do-dun. I was the 70th, did that.
That's great, man.
So I had to ask, who is this pop star guy? He ripped them off?
Yeah, Phil
I'm sure
Collins,
it might.
That?
Yeah, it might well have been the other way around, but hey, I didn't know.
Oh, man. Now, am I keeping you too long, Rab, or can I hit you with a few more questions?
Oh, no, you're okay. Just like, again, I'm still recovering from a cold, so I just had to sneeze there.
Yeah,
Pardon me.
Between your time, just that you're giving it to me, and also the fact that I know you're recovering from a cold, I just don't want to take too much. So.
Not at all, man. Talk away. No, I've penciled myself in here for a couple of hours. You're grand.
No, you're very kind. What's the deal with the cheese question, Rab? Did you also grow up in a house where you tried a lot of exotic cheese?
Oh, the cheese question. Oh man, we had a whole bunch of really random, mad questions that we used to ask people just to throw them off.
Yeah,
and the cheese question is one that stuck.
Yeah.
We used to ask questions like, "Have you ever drove a tractor?" That was another one.
Yeah.
Well, hello there, Bill Livingston. Have you ever drove a tractor? And as you can imagine, Bill's reaction to that would be, "Who are you, you cretin? Go away." So I found certain questions work and certain questions don't. The food one is universal. Everyone loves food. So, of course, if you either like cheese or you don't. Yeah. So the cheese one stuck. What was the first time we ever met Fred Morrison? We asked him, what kind of shampoo does he use?
He does have great hair, so it's a reasonable
He has
question.
Amazing hair. So we thought, hey, this could be a question we'll ask everyone, what kind of shampoo do you use?
Yeah.
And then we thought, there's some guys out there who are bald and might not use shampoo. So, yeah. We used to love throwing these in, because whenever we first started out, everyone didn't really know whether to take us serious or not, and just how hard hitting would be. So they were very guarded, very careful with what they had to say, thinking that we were going to try and trip them up and make them say something controversial or would get them into trouble or their band into trouble, Yeah. So I'm certainly not in that business. I understand the piping world well enough that there are certain things that you just don't say.
Yeah.
And there's certain topics you don't talk about. Mm-hmm. But, I'm not in the business of tripping anyone up. So the cheese question was always an icebreaker. Yeah. I kind of let people know the level of where the show was at. It's almost as if you meet someone for the first time and then you start talking about fart jokes. Yeah. I don't care who you are, but farts are always funny.
They're always funny, and everybody knows about them, so you don't have to worry about explaining it.
Exactly. I don't care who you are. You could be Richard Parks, Alan Tully. A fart joke's a fart joke, and that's funny. Do you know what I mean? Yeah. So it's a great leveler. I always use the cheese question as an icebreaker kind of thing, but now more so now we're bringing it towards the end of the just as a bit of fun and a bit of crack. Because people now, thankfully, over the years have kind of gotten used to what we do, and that we're not in the business of getting people in trouble. You know, we're not deliberately setting out to trip them up or make them look foolish in any way. We're trying to help support them and their message and what they're trying to do, but also to pick their brain and get some more information out of them that folks would find useful, you know? Yeah. So the cheese question stuck.
it stuck around. What about the pineapple on pizza thing?
That one hasn't stuck as much because there's been some folk that says, well, you know, I can't eat wheat and I can't eat dough with pizza at all, so I've never tried it.
Okay. Do you mind if I take that one then, Rab? Can I have that one?
Hey, go for it. Yeah.
it was really fun. I don't know if you're aware that like pineapple on pizza is a very popular topping here in Utah. And
really?
It's also I believe it's statistically the most popular pizza topping in the Dakotas here in the United States as well, which is where my dad grew up. And so for me,
you guys are savages.
Yeah, for me, pineapple on pizza, that's what I ate before I ever ate pepperoni on pizza, right? Like that's pizza to me, right? And so
that's insane.
The thing is, when I was getting ready to start this podcast, my wife was helping me come up with some questions, you know, and she's like, "What's some quirky questions? Like, what does Rab do?" You know, because she knows that I listen to your show a lot. And I was like, well, you ask people what their favorite cheese is all the time. She's like, oh, okay, just ask them something about food. Like, do they like pineapple on pizza? I was like, all right, I'll ask them that question.
See,
I'm not joking, Rab. That week, the episode that you came out with, you asked somebody how they felt about pineapple on pizza. I was like, well, now I can't do it. Rab already did it. I can't do it now.
Oh, there you go. No, go for it, man. No, we don't have any patent pending on any of those or copyright. No, go for it, man. Yeah.
That's fun.
No, we always kind of use things like that you know, that connect people to people. You know, food's a big thing. Obviously, if you're on the ground somewhere and you know you can point at things. Look at that dog over there. You know, you know, things like that can connect you and the person and the place. That really helps. Yeah. And sometimes when you're recording interviews remotely, as we are now, it's difficult. You know what I mean? Yeah. It's hard to build a rapport with someone, especially people who are up in the top flight and are seen as this respected figure and perhaps are being very guarded about what they're saying.
Sure, yeah.
You know, you ask them the question, well, how did you feel that your band played today? And you get a one-word answer. And it's like, yeah, good. You're like, well, give me something, you know?
Yeah. So, or you ask a question, you just get a yes or a no in response.
Oh, it's horrible. I've been there many, many times. And, you know, the interview...
You do have the gift, though, Rab. You make them work, so good on you.
Well, you have to, you know? Because otherwise the two of you are standing there like two lemons, you know?
Yeah.
So, no, there has been a few interviews over the years where it has been one-word answers. I'm not going to name names, but, yeah, the atmosphere was thick. You know?
Yeah.
And then, obviously, whenever the person realised, oh, crap, that's Rab. And, yep, that was recorded. Yeah, that's going to be in the pod this week. And then, sure enough, they listen to it and say, hey, Rab, you know, I was a bit of an arse to you. I'm sorry. I had a tough day that day. I didn't mean to be rough to you. And so it's happened more times than enough. And but I always try and walk people through their anger. Yes, I understand you had a bad run or you're having a bad day, but, you know, yeah, let's have a bit of a laugh here. Let's talk about cheese.
Yeah, talk about cheese. There you go.
Exactly, yeah.
Now, are you, like, to what degree do you feel like, so, like, it's clear to me that, like, you were kind of born into the piping and drumming.
Yeah, very much so.
To what degree do you feel like you were born into the gift of gab, right? Like, talking, interviewing people, asking questions, explaining things. Like, do you love to teach? Do you love to ask people? Like, where is this coming from? Is it biology? Were you in a certain debate class when you were a kid? Where do you think that part of your personality comes from?
Nothing like that. Well, I think my mum is a great talker. She's a bit of a writer too, would write a lot of poetry and stuff and prose and things. And my gift of the gab was, I think, because of a basic lack of intelligence in school. In school, I wasn't very academic. I'm not great when it comes to subjects like maths and chemistry and things like that. And I was always able to talk my way around a certain thing. You know what I mean? So I always had that gift to be able to talk to people, no matter who the person was. You know, it could have been the headmaster, it could have been the teacher. It wouldn't matter who. But the interviewing thing, honestly, has been a skill that I've had to learn over the years. Do you know what I mean? Like, I first got involved in radio completely by accident by being invited in to Fuse FM for an interview. The band I was playing with at the time, we were launching an album, and typical band full of musicians. Nobody wanted to talk. They all wanted to look at the floor, and then of course I got the job. Said, Rab, you're good at talking. Go up there and tell them about the CD. And I said, okay, right. So I got the job then, and the guy was asking me questions and stuff, and I found me and him got on quite well, and we're chatting away for the guts of a 2-hour radio show. And then at the end of it, he says, you're quite good at talking. I kind of laughed at him. I said, yeah, so everyone tells me. But they said, yeah, why don't you come on and do a show and stuff? Yeah. And then that's when it started. Then I said, well, okay, the only thing I know is piping and drumming, and that's when the no came.
Right. That's, yeah.
But yeah, whenever I was on stage playing at gigs and pubs and bars and stuff, I was always the guy that filled the in-between spaces.
You'd chat to the crowd and all that.
Exactly. Yeah. The guitar player would either take a swig of beer, tune his guitar, something, chat to his girlfriend. And I'm, Rab, fill for 5 minutes. Yeah. So I would get up there and just talk absolute nonsense. Yeah. I even now can't remember what the heck I said on stage. But yeah, being able to talk publicly was always something that never bothered me. Yeah. But the whole interviewing thing is a different skill set altogether. Mm-hmm. I can talk away to myself quite happily, me and my screen here talking on a podcast every week, thinking no one listens. But whenever I have a guest on, it's a completely different dynamic because I'm having to really I have to think from the other person's perspective. I have to think that the person I have on is on the show for a reason. They're there either to promote a certain band, a product, an album, or whatever it is that they're trying to promote. So the questions that I try to ask that person is everything is aimed towards promoting the person and what they're doing.
Yeah.
So that's exactly where my focus has been. I think I've learned it okay. With my experience in BBC, I've kind of learned a very valuable lesson, and that's just to shut the hell up and let the person talk. Which is
good company there, of course. I mean, BBC being responsible for some great interviews over the how many decades? Are we hitting centuries now that they've been around?
Oh, that for sure. I have no idea. But that's one of the biggest lessons I learned in Kintra is, Rab, and I remember the first kind of critic I ever got, that was, Rab, your interviews are great and all. I said, but we didn't really get the story. I said, well, why? Well, we got the story. We were talking all about whatever it was. And I said, yeah, but you started asking the guy about his shoes and then his car, and then you started asking the guy about where he got his jacket from, and then did he know such and such? He lived next door to him, and I was talking about everything else apart from what I should have been talking about. So if I learned just to ask the question and then shut the hell up,
just let him do the talking.
So I know I'm taking over your show, man. I'm slabbering here like an idiot.
But that's exactly what it's supposed to be, because right now you are the interviewee, right?
Which is it's a weird juxtaposition. I'm used to being weird, right? You are not in your shoes. Yeah. So no, I'm used to asking the question and then sitting back, and then making sure that I'm listening as well. Because I know a lot of folks who interview and they get the answer and they just go, and here's your next question.
Right. Just go down the list.
Exactly. They're just reading bullet points. They're not interviewing. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah. That's one of the best criticisms that I've got so far, and I still have to work to not do that. But my buddy Swan pointed that out for me. That I've got this. It is difficult. I don't have to get the questions; just talk to the person.
Exactly. Yeah, and it's a difficult skill to have for sure. But
do you feel like you're drawn to like entertainment forms that match this sort of ability to speak? Like, do you really enjoy stand-up comedy? Is there a certain kind of, especially with your mom being a bit of a writer, have you enjoyed reading poetry yourself or hearing people read it? Is the spoken word something that brings you entertainment in a similar way that music does, or is it?
Definitely. Yeah, I think for sure. I'm a huge audiophile. Like, I listen to a very unhealthy amount of podcasts and radio shows and stuff. But that's been with me since the 80s, because let's face it, in the 80s there was nothing else to do other than to listen to stuff. The internet wasn't a thing. The TV was crap. You only had like 4 channels and your dad just wanted to watch the sport all the time anyway. So yeah, audio is a huge deal for me. And yeah, stand-up comedy, long-form conversations like podcasts, audiobooks, things like that. I could get so invested in the conversation and lose myself in the moment, And I do think that a lot of the people who are extremely gifted with wordsmithing and stuff can really carry you on a journey. And it's one of those things, you know, I'm a huge fan of it for sure. I don't think it gets quite the credit it deserves in the media world. You know, whenever someone hears that you work in radio, they kind of think, oh, well, you're a failed TV presenter.
Right. That's what you did because you couldn't get to do what you really wanted to do, right?
Exactly. Yeah. And if anything, I'm getting this a lot now at the moment. I've been on the BBC on Kintra now for quite a number of years, and people keep asking me, well, when are you going to be going on TV? I said, I don't want to go on TV. You know, I've got the face for radio, man. Have you seen this? Yeah.
Very handsome man, Rab. Come on. The
not at
only
all.
piece, well, not the only piece now, but the very first piece of Chanter Rant merch that I purchased was the Rabby the Pooh t-shirt.
Oh, no way.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, I've got one. That's epic. Yeah. But yeah, no, I have no plans for TV at all. If it comes around, you know, I'll look at it, no problem. But no, that for me, where it's at, radio has always been the focus of mine, and podcasting for sure. I really enjoy podcasts. I'm a huge fan of them, you know.
Yeah, and maybe I'm digging too hard at it right now, Rab. But I'm just curious. Like, I wonder if what I'm imagining is kind of like, you know, you in your formative years, sort of getting this sort of like input about music, maybe strongly from your father, and maybe did your mother read to you a lot, being somebody who.
Well, she wouldn't have read to me a lot, but she definitely would have encouraged me to look more at books because she knew how academically crap I was. And she really certainly pushed me at school. You know, she really certainly helped in my lessons, making sure I'd done my homework and my studying and all that. And then, because my dad was always whisking me away to practice, you know, he's like, sure, you can learn about French next week. Come on, we've got band practice.
Homework,
Exactly. We have a competition on Saturday. Who cares about trigonometry, you know?
About
so
1766, we got stuff to do.
Yeah, exactly, 100%. So yeah, my mother was always kind of, you know, looking at various different books, and it got me semi-interested in the written word. But I say semi-interested. You know, I could certainly sit and read a book, no problem, as long as it's on a topic that I'm interested in.
About Pembroke, for example.
Exactly, like Dan Nevin's book, I read within 2-3 days. It was brilliant. But if I'm not interested, I just won't read it. You know.
So what do you feel like you are, if you're comfortable talking about it, what do you feel like you are passing on in terms of sort of like a set of values or focuses or passions to your own kids? Or maybe what would you like to pass on to them? Like, are they also being brought up in the piping and drumming world, or like, you know, what's important to you to pass along to the next generation?
Oh, that's a great question, man. And it's something, honestly, my wife and I have been talking about for a while. Because my daughter did start out learning the bagpipes, and she was doing quite well. But she, again, found them incredibly difficult, and she did want to focus more on her studies with school and everything instead of piping. So, but I obviously, being the pushy dad, I was like, oh, come on. You've like 4 or 5 road tunes off. Come on, you'll be in the band if you learn another 2 here. So I was push, and then I think the more I pushed at it, the more reluctant she was to lift them. So
that does happen, doesn't it?
It does happen. So I've stood back now, and I thought, well, okay, if you want to lift those pipes on your own accord, then so be it. So yeah, but I think the legacy issue. My kids are surrounded with piping and drumming all the time. You know, constantly in the kitchen or the lounge or whatever, blasting out music and stuff all the time, constantly listening to things, reading about bands, musicians, talking to my wife about it too. So the kids are surrounded with all of this. Famously, I took my daughter to a competition here a couple of years ago, and she decided to hang out with me for the day, you know, to hear bands that I wanted to hear. So she says, right, Dad, okay, I'm getting into this piping lark. You show me some bands that are a good example of, you know, what I should be aiming for. So we listened to Field Marshal, you know, a couple of grade 1 bands are here. And she absolutely hated it because the entire day I spent my time, you know, you walk 3 feet and then you stop, you have a conversation with someone, shake hands, take a selfie. And then you walk another 3 feet, shake hands, say hi, take a selfie. And I didn't realize it, you know, that I was doing it, until my daughter pointed it out to me. And said, do you know how annoying it is to go to a competition with you?
Look, she's got a good point, Rab. I mean, if people recognize you just on the street and in the shop, I mean, going to a competition, that's like Christian Bale going to a Batman convention. Like, you're going to get stopped a lot.
That's one thing I honestly didn't appreciate, you know. And even, I think even now in school, she's still getting asked, is your dad Big Rab?
Oh, wow.
Yeah, and even my son, who's at primary school, and he's, quite proudly boasting to his mates, my dad's Big Rab.
He doesn't go by Little Rab himself?
No. No, so he's got his own Big Rab show hoodie and stuff, and he wears it, proudly and all the rest, so that's kind of awesome. But yeah.
Enjoy it while it lasts, right? He'll
well, that's it,
eventually, yeah.
Exactly. When he turns teenager, he'll not want to know me.
That's right.
But I think the overall thing that I want to instill in my own kids is a sense of pride in their own culture.
Yeah.
It's a big deal here in Northern Ireland at the moment, having your own sense of identity and having a culture and a history that you can hang your hat on, because for the longest time it's been inappropriate to talk about your own particular background, because if you mentioned it in a certain place at a wrong time, you could have got a kicking or a gun pointed at you, or all sorts of craziness through the Troubles. So for the longest time I was always taught, never mention bands or piping when you're out. Mention it at home when you're with us, when you're safe, but whenever you're out and around, because that was during the 80s and 90s when the Troubles were still going, people were still shooting and bombing all over the place, and you didn't really want to talk about your favorite music or your culture or where you're from, anything like that, because it identified you, and possibly made you a target. So now, very much, I want the opposite for my kids. I want them to be able to go out and tell people, say, hey, I'm a fan of Field Marshal, Inverary, St. Lawrence. I love these guys. They're great. You should listen to them too, And thankfully, that's what my kids do.
And so, I did, somewhat jokingly, but really talk earlier about how, what little I know about Northern Ireland, the Troubles, the whole situation there is based off of shows like Derry Girls, a few movies here and there, right? So it's, and which often make light of it, right? That's often comedies that I'm drawn to anyway. Of course, I know the song by the Cranberries, Zombie, right? That's a heavier one, but
a bit of an anthem. Yeah.
I mean, at this point, can you wear orange or green any day you want? What kind of is it better, or are you still a little tentative about this stuff?
Still a little tentative, man, if I'm honest. There is a piece, but it's a shaky piece. Do you know what I mean? Where you wouldn't proudly walk down the street, wearing your orange or green or whatever you decide to wear, because again, it singles you out and it identifies you. We are in peacetime. My kids are growing up now, learning about the Troubles in school. In their history class.
History. Is that funny for you to be like, wait a minute, this is my life. It can't be history.
It's so weird, because my daughter was coming. She said to me, she says, Dad, do you remember army checkpoints and stuff and getting searched and that? Yeah, of course I did. And it's, oh, wow, we learned that in school today, that you had to do all that.
Wow.
Yeah, that was part of everyday life. And,
isn't that wonderful, though, then, to be able to think to yourself that she only knows about this through a history book and isn't living it herself?
Totally, yeah. So, of course, she wants to learn more and more and more, so she's constantly annoying us about it,
Yeah.
Because in our hometown, there's been quite a few bombs, quite a few murders and stuff, and quite tragic history, actually. But she's fascinated. She thinks this is a great thing to learn about. And I said, nah, let the past be the past, move on. But no, she wants to learn all about it.
It's interesting. I don't mean to draw inappropriate parallels, between different experiences of suffering and things like that, but it does. I wonder if it resonates with you at all to think about the experience of, for example, soldiers coming back from World War I, where very little information, at least my impression, as far as I can understand it, it was difficult to get firsthand information from the people who were actually there, because it was so difficult. They would much rather, many of them would prefer to say, let the past be the past. Let's not talk 100%. About it. And
100%.
It took a whole generation before you could start writing books and doing research and stuff like that.
Yeah. I completely understand that. As a kid of the 80s, I grew up with all of that. I remember soldiers running through my front garden and stuff and saying good morning to them and all of that on my way to school. It was just normal life here. And I'm not unique. Everyone in Northern Ireland experienced this. I'm not just saying, I had a terrible time. It wasn't a terrible time. It was just life. Programs like that, the Derry Girls and stuff. And you hear the TV on in the background saying, there's another car bomb today. And they all laugh about it. Oh, flip's sake, where's that? That's very, very true. That's what it was like, when you heard the news story on the TV, oh, there's a bomb on a certain bridge, and then I think it's the mum, she gives off, how am I going to get to the hairdressers now?
Right, she's upset about the commute or something, yeah.
Yeah, and that's exactly what it was like. Honestly, I've never seen anything more accurate.
Wow.
So, yeah, it's a very interesting dynamic. For a legacy to be leaving behind for my kids is just to be proud of their own heritage and their culture, where they're able to tell their friends, hey, I love piping and drumming and stuff, and I love all of the history and culture that goes with it, because I wasn't able to kind of enjoy it like that when I was a kid. You know?
Do you feel like that sort of healthy kind of pride is valuable in a sort of healing process for yourself and people your own age, as well as like maybe to be able to feel that way yourself, but maybe even more so to see it in your own kids in the next generation?
Definitely. And if anything, I've learned that recently. Whereas before, you know, having cross-community relations, you know, having mates who were like the other side of the divide would never have happened in the 80s and 90s. Now it's commonplace. And, you know, we're constantly hearing stories of kids just sharing stories of where they were at the weekend. You know, so they were at, you know, a competition or something and they're telling all their buddies, or they were at something else that ordinarily you would never talk about before. We are starting to see communities mixing and kind of sharing their experiences together, and it's definitely to be encouraged.
Well, again, I don't mean to, you know, draw inappropriate parallels between suffering, but I can't help think about like the Rwandan genocide, where you know, it's a different experience to what I've personally experienced, right? Because if I could point to anybody who in my own lifetime has ever been any kind of military enemy for me, right? They're not my neighbors, right? It's people from across the world, you know? And so like the situation
far away somewhere,
right? And so like the healing after the Rwandan conflict, right, where it's like these were neighbors and cousins and aunts and uncles. It's so hard to imagine being there in Northern Ireland and, like, you know, within your living memory, having it be not people who are easily identifiable, who, you know, like just from looking at them that they're different from you, right? Not people from a different land, right? It's people who have the same claim on the dirt as you do, whose ancestors grew up with your ancestors. You all look the same. You all speak the same language. Like, so much is shared. To then have that kind of conflict, it's that sounds complicated.
It's a bit of a head melter, for sure. Yeah. So that's, you know, exactly what I'm talking about. You know, to give this next generation a sense of pride of who they are and where they came from, and that they're allowed to be who they are, you know, and that they shouldn't have to hide it, you know. And in this new land of peace, that's exactly what it's about. It's, you know, it's a sense of tolerance, I suppose, you know, that you're embracing your own culture as well as everyone else's. Yeah. And I suppose that's what it's about. Yeah. God, this conversation went down a road, didn't it?
You know, Rab,
talking about cheese to talking about the troubles and stuff.
Well, you tell me how you feel about it. I'm thinking that might have just been the most beautiful place to end it. Just end it with a note on tolerance and, you know, peace. And
yeah, if anything, I've kind of drew a lot of experience from the piping scene in that regard. You know, I've said it like 100 times on the show, and I mean it, you know, to the depths of my heart, is that the piping world is a huge family that's international, and no matter where you are on the planet, there's someone who knows someone who plays in a pipe band, you know, or knows someone who's ever played pipes before or used to be a drummer. It's truly, truly international. I'll never forget coming home from Stone Mountain. We were in Atlanta Airport, both me and the guy I was with, Winston. We were both flew over there. We were flying home, and I thought, oh crap, I didn't get a souvenir for the kids. So stopped at like a little gift shop and stuff, get them a teddy bear or a football or something.
Yeah, one of those airport $40 teddy bears, right?
Exactly, yeah, which were insane. I couldn't believe the price of them. But anyway, I was standing there, of course, you know, I had my Rab Show hood on, and I was standing shopping away, and a guy comes over, taps me on the shoulder, and he says, "Hey, I heard you went pretty well at Stone Mountain at the weekend."
Really?
Yeah. Who are you?
Yeah.
Oh, I'm just a fan of the podcast and stuff. It's nice to meet you. Now, I have no idea who that guy was.
Yeah.
Where he came from, just completely out of the blue. You know, but it shows you, even standing at the middle of Atlanta, that you think, you know, we're as far away from piping and drumming as possible at this point. There's still someone who's connected to the piping scene. It was great, you know. So yeah, that's kind of my, my overarching thought on everything that we do in the Rab Show is we're a huge big piping family. At the moment, our job in the Rab Show is to try and keep the family connected and together as we get through all of this COVID nonsense, and then hopefully get back on the grass again and do what we love. Yeah.
Well, I think that you are doing a great job of it. Even if you hadn't brought it up, that's already something that I would have independently thought to myself, what is valuable about this show? It's exactly that. It's a connection. It's a catalyst for connection.
Thanks, man. I appreciate that. I find that's kind of reassuring then. It means we're doing something right. Yeah.